school vouchers, charter schools, something called ESA. What is ESA? Educational Savings
Account.
What is that?
Well, it's education reform is happening a bunch of different ways across the country. It's happening state by state. So there's places where scholarship tax credits are taking root, educational savings accounts. That's something that they're using in Arizona. I think people are approaching it as it befits their state and what they think makes the most sense.
Is homeschooling a school choice?
Oh, absolutely. And for many families in Missouri and St. Louis, it's a very robust kind of school choice. And so families who feel for whatever reason, either through access or for religious reasons, or it's a talent for their family and it's something that they really believe in. Some of our best students in our universities were homeschooled, so it's a viable choice and should be supported. But it also has to be controlled like everything else. We should make sure that children are getting appropriately educated.
Here's an interesting bit of choice that we might not have considered from Twitter. Michael, I'll throw this one to you. So from Twitter, someone says they live in a good school district, but they pay private tuition to send their kid into the city for the value of diversity. That's a school choice option maybe people wouldn't consider.
And it's interesting. That was the reason for the desegregation suit a long time ago, was for folks from the county. It was to come to the city, to city schools. It was a racial experiment, though, and it wasn't supposed to be a long-term solution for education solutions. So when you look at choice as far as the reverse of going from a good district to what's considered a failing district, it's just not happening as likely as we wanted to, and we hope more parents will make that choice to put their kids in St. Louis public schools.
I also, from Twitter, someone saying that this whole choice thing can be a little overwhelming. This is a lot to put on the plate of a parent working and trying to educate their children.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is that people are becoming better consumers of this product, but all of the information isn't out there yet. And so we have to, whether it's departments of education or school districts themselves or advocates for school choice, have to really make sure that there's really solid, consistent, and easy to understand information so families can make those good choices.
And I don't think it's necessarily part of our psyche. You know, we have this long-standing, I would say somewhat romanticized relationship with public education the way it has always been. And I don't think that people, what we're finding, SEAM has worked a lot with families in Normandy and Riverview Gardens, a lot of families thanking us for really raising the issue and bringing it to their attention, that it's just not a way that we've necessarily thought about educating our kids. But, you know, in my mind, and I tell people all the time, you know, we have school choice in Missouri. It's for people who can afford to pay tuition or can afford to live in the district that they want to. And, you know, my motivation for being involved in this is simply that I'm done telling people that you have to continue to send your child to an underperforming school while we figure it out. Because a year in the life of a child, or 2 years or 3 years, is just not the same as it is for those of us trying to sort this thing out.
But one part of choice we haven't touched on today is that the majority of parents are choosing to keep their kids in the public school. Now, what parents want is a good public school in their neighborhood. And we're not remembering in Normandy and Riverview and St. Louis public schools, over 70% of these parents, these students, stay in their own school. And what bothers me from time to time is that we are not focusing on the classrooms of those kids that are left there. Most times those kids are left with the least amount of resources, and they're the ones that need it the most.
Well, I think what we know is for about 50 years we've been focusing in earnest on what's been going on in neighborhood schools, and it's because we didn't see success for everyone that we looked for other choice. We had equity issues, which was the desegregation case, and I think really since the Outstanding Schools Act and since the 90s, what we're really focusing now on is it shouldn't just be people with means who have quality choices. I think the other important piece here too is, and what you did say, Michael, that I think is really on point, is that people do choose public schools. And so sometimes we think that because a child's in a public school district, whether it's in an unaccredited district or a neighborhood school, that somehow they're a victim, and that's not the case. Many, many families want a school in their neighborhood. It just so happens in St. Louis, the majority of families right now that use public schools are actually using choice public schools. So they want both. They want to be able to make sure that their house is in a neighborhood that has a good neighborhood school and that the children on the block are going to a neighborhood school, but they also want to be able to have access to themed schools or quality private schools. And for many children, the suburbs are even a better option for them because that's what their families want. So I think what St. Louis has right now is just a wonderful portfolio of options that needs to continue to grow. But I think that without quality, choice doesn't mean anything.
Is that a
Right.
portfolio, what percentage of our students have access to that portfolio?
Well, everyone in St. Louis City has access to it. And so we have right now about 5,000 children in the voluntary transfer program. We're not meeting the needs of all of the children who apply. There were about 3,000 children who didn't have access. We have 9,000 children who are in charter schools. Well over half of the children in St. Louis public schools are in some sort of choice program. And then we have another 6,000, 7,000 children who are in Catholic, private, independent, other parochial schools. So there's quite a bit of choice going in St. Louis. What we want to assure is that when you have a good choice, it's a good choice. It's a quality choice for your child.
Michael, when you talk about the students who are left behind, are you just talking about what's going on in Normandy with the transfer program, or are you talking about charter schools as well? Are you okay with the proliferation of charter schools?
Well, mostly not just the students in Normandy. There are plenty of students in St. Louis Public Schools in Riverview, and even in some successful districts where they are not getting the attention that they need in the districts, in the school buildings that are in a sense being called failing behind. Now, I'm not an anti-charter school. I have 2 great charter schools in my district. But at the same time, my focus has always been about every child in the district and what's best for every child. I taught at an elementary school that is in the superintendent zone, some of the failing schools, the most horrendous failing schools in our district. And I call them the lost children sometimes. These kids, the difference between their education and a good public education, the Parkway, the Webster, the Ladue School District, where we know public education works, are staffing differences, their textbook differences, their technology differences, their community schools, their poverty differences. So when you look at that and fixing those issues instead of fixing just the building, I think we're gonna start seeing successes, and we're seeing successes around the country surrounding it.
I hear what Representative Butler is saying, and I don't think it's an either-or proposition. I just am absolutely convinced that the system is just not going to fix itself from within. I mean, I just don't believe it is. You know, when the VA health system broke down, you know, we looked at that, and we're looking at it, and are looking at breakdowns. And people aren't upset about that. People aren't saying, oh, those pesky veterans and their illnesses, why don't they just get well? I mean, they're looking at the system, not the people who are using the system. And I think that that's what we need to look at when we talk about school choice as well, that it has the potential, I think, to improve, to be the tide that raises all boats. I think that when you begin to stop taking the people who are coming to your school building for granted, and recognize that you have to perform to a certain level, I think that that does improve everyone. I mean, that's why I'm so ardent about it, so enthusiastic about it, is because if I really thought it could change itself from within, I'm not in this because I'm some big-time free marketeer or because I want to send my kids to a religious school. I mean, there are ways to open up choice, and I think that it has the potential to really improve education across the board.
And I'm glad you brought up Veteran Affairs, the VA hospital. I think when it comes to the VA hospital, healthcare in hospitals are the #1, I guess, apples to apples comparison to the school choice movement. It's, 40, 50, 60 years ago, the majority of hospitals in this country were all public hospitals. Around that time, they began to have in a sense, a privatization of hospitals. And we all know what's happened over the years, and we all know the difference between those of healthcare between those in impoverished areas and those that are well off. We have a very big equity issues when it comes to healthcare in this country. And it all started out with the same rhetoric, the same type of solutions with privatizing the public hospitals. And now we did it with prisons, and now schools are next.
I don't.